What really makes us better people is our capacity to question the status quo to achieve positive change. If you are seeking to adopt new habits, to learn about a kind lifestyle, low-waste living, and speaking up for justice, you have come to the right place. Together, we will make the switch that will light up this world. I'm Morgan, and I'm happy to welcome you on this journey. Tradition is not an excuse for cruelty, and many societies have ended or are working to end traditional practices such as slavery, cannibalism, infanticide, female circumcision, foot binding, bullfighting, fox hunting, and many more that cause animals or humans to suffer. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, beautiful souls, wherever you are and whatever the time is, you are welcome here on this podcast. Today, as you might have guessed, we are going to talk about the topic of traditions and if those justify cruelty, whether it's toward animals or human beings, but on this podcast we will focus on animal abuse. In my daily activism, I mostly talk about animals who are bred into existence and murdered in animal farming. But recently I listened to one of the most recent episodes of the Disclosure podcast, which is run by Earthling Ed, who is a quite renowned animal rights activist. And this episode was called Staying Hopeful and Present in the Face of Animal Exploitation. In this one, he interviewed Joanne McArthur. Joanne McArthur is a Canadian photojournalist, a humane educator, animal rights activist, and author who is known for her We Animals project, which is a photography project documenting human relationships with animals. She wrote 2 books, one called We Animals and one called Captive. She also has on her website, she actually I think has 2 websites, one that's purely dedicated to her photography and one that's called We Animals Media. And there she has an archive with photos that she took over the years from all kinds of industries or festivals or practices that involve animal cruelty. And you can find those, like I said, on the website called We Animal Media, which I will leave the link for this in the description box. Just beware that some photos are graphic. Over there she has over 50 different categories of photos on animal abuse, but also some photos about animal rescues. The point here is that if you're an animal rights activist, you are free to use her photos just as long as you cite her and that you use the copyrights. So after listening to this episode, and she just explained some of her experiences and the different kind of cruel practices and traditions that she witnessed and photographed in her career. And I asked myself, what can be some of the cruelest traditions toward animals on this planet? And here is what I found. I came across a pretty good article from PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. There's no, I couldn't find any precise date of when this was released, but I would say it's pretty up to date. And even if it's not, I will explain my point at the end. So let's see, what do we have first? Gotta take this a bit closer because my eyesight is not that good. We have first Cotzcaalpato in Mexico. So in Sitilcom in Yucatan, iguanas and opossums are stuffed into piñatas, which are then beaten with sticks. The animals who survived the initial assault are later killed by the crowd, and at the end of the festival, a duck is hung from a wooden scaffold, and contestants try to grab him or her, which breaks the bird's neck and splatters the audience with blood. So as you can see, there is nothing really fun or respectful here about the animals who are the victims in these circumstances. And I will go on with the different traditions. Here we have 14 of them, and then we can exchange more on this. Then comes Tracotalpanbo Festival in Mexico as well. During this annual fiesta in Veracruz, bulls are force-fed alcohol, dragged across a river by boats, and then beaten and stabbed. Nothing really nice here as well. Mexico again, Torneo de Lazo. In this rodeo-style event in Yucatan, horses are eviscerated by charging bulls. If you don't know what eviscerated means, it basically means that the charging bulls who are running toward the horses pierce their bodies. So they make different holes and the horses suffer. Although this cruelty is against the law, officials have taken no action to stop it. And you will see quickly that this is a very big generality, that whether it's officials or politicians, they don't take action against any of this. Number 4, the festival of the ox, Fara de Boi, in Brazil. During Brazil's Fara de Boi, oxen are chased, punched, kicked, and beaten with sticks, knives, whips, stones, and ropes. Their eyes are rubbed with hot pepper and gouged out. Their limbs are broken and their tails are snapped and hacked off. And some are even doused with gasoline and set on fire. Any oxen who survive are eventually killed, and their flesh is divided among the participants. Number 5, Gadimai Festival, Nepal. Every 5 years, near the Nepal-India border, more than 100,000 buffalo, goats, chickens, ducks, and other animals are massacred. We can call this a genocide. Nem Truong Pig Slaughter Festival in Vietnam. Terrified pigs are tied by all 4 legs and forced onto their backs, spread eagle. A large sword is then used to cut the screaming animals in half. 7, the sadly famous Yulin Dog Meat Festival, China. Thousands of dogs are rounded up and crammed into cages with no food or water. Then they're transported hundreds of miles to be slaughtered and eaten. If you are surprised, well, don't worry, there's more human cruelty towards animals for you. Kosi Ukweswama in South Africa, and sorry if I'm not pronouncing all the names right. In a test of manhood, young warriors chase a bull around an enclosure, wrestle him to the ground, and kill him by breaking his neck or smothering him. Number 9, Toro de la Vega, Spain. This annual event takes place in the town of Tordesillas, where a bull is chased through the streets and stabbed to death with spears. Number 10, Perro Palo Festival, Villanueva de la Vera, Spain as well. There's a lot of nicely, very profoundly cruel traditions in Spain, as you will see. A terrified donkey in the village of Extremadura is pushed, pulled, kicked, bitten, and dragged by crowds of drunken revelers, and alcohol is sometimes forced down the animal's throat. Number 11, we're approaching the end, but it's certainly not the end of all the cruel traditions that take place in the world. Running of the bulls, San Fermin Fiestas, Spain. In Pamplona's running of the bulls, which is part of the San Fermin's Fiestas, bulls are prodded and goaded to make them panic and run down cobblestone streets. Screaming people run alongside the animals, grabbing and twisting their tails and hitting them with sticks and rolled up newspapers. They're then stabbed to death and bullfighting in bullfighting arenas. Number 12, sharing of the beasts, La Rapa das Bestas, Spain. In this Galician event, wild horses are corralled and men and women jump on top of them, pulling their necks and tails in an attempt to wrestle them to the ground. Once the horses are overcome, the fighters brand them and shear their manes and tails, so which means they just basically shave their tails and their manes, which is a horse's hair. Number 13, Toro Jubilo, Spain as well. Residents attach balls of flammable tar or pitch to the horns of terrified, restrained bulls. The animal's horns are then set on fire, and the panicked bulls, who are either tied to stakes in public squares or released to run madly through the streets, are left to burn for hours. The tar scorches their faces, eyes, and bodies. Many reportedly crash into walls in agony and blind terror. Their carcasses are later divided among the participants for consumption. Residents apparently believe that consuming the flesh of the tortured animals confers fertility and invincibility. Wow, what you need to do to be invincible and fertile, I surely wouldn't do that kind of stuff. Number 14, Grindadrap, Faroe Islands. Entire pods of pilot whales are surrounded by boats and forced onto the shore where their throats are cut. So, yeah, that was quite bad, wasn't it? So my point is, whether those are still happening or not, they are the proof of humankind's craziness and cruelty toward animals. But you have to think, to realize, those are socially and legally accepted in those countries. But it doesn't make them right. And just like abusing and slaughtering animals in Europe or in the US is legal and socially accepted, still it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it moral for the animals who go through a huge amount of pain, huge amount of suffering, or literally torn apart. They have their heads chopped off. They are stabbed in the throat. How is it any different than what the people are doing in other countries? Um, Yesterday, when I read through several articles on different traditions abusing and killing animals all over the world, um, I couldn't help but feeling rage and hopelessness for humankind. I just felt so powerless because I'm fighting for animal abuse in Europe because I live in Europe, but I obviously cannot be everywhere at the same time on this planet. And it just tears me apart to know that, just like it tears me apart to know that right now there are cows who are being separated from their babies, or who are being raped, or there are pigs who are being gassed into chambers, or who are buried alive because of the freaking coronavirus. I It just kills me to know that there are these millions of animals who are begging for mercy, just begging to live, to have the freedom of living. And I'm here and trying to help as much as I can, but there's nothing I can do about this. At least that's how I felt. I felt like there was nothing I could do about these animals who are present on these mad occasions and festivals abroad. And as I was reading these different articles, and they used to be some fucking crazy traditions that I didn't even mention here, but something like goose pulling, like in Bulgaria, I think it's apparently abolished, but in some villages, apparently some people still do it, and they hang a goose with a cord and like a rope, and then a man, or maybe even woman, like this is the thing, like when we talk about empathy, like people think like empathy is more a woman thing, but there's no different. There's no difference. It doesn't matter the sex, the gender. People can be truly mad and conditioned to accept cruelty and even to engage in it. Um, and yeah, the person would run on a horse, which is already abusing an animal, and they would run toward the goose who is hanging down, and they have to try and catch their neck and pull their neck. Like, how do you think that feels like, to have your neck torn apart your body, just like the animals that we slaughter in slaughterhouses? Like, do you think it's fun for them? But yeah, it just really like it flabbergasted me. I don't know if that's a word, but I was just flabbergasted and shocked to find out that even though some of these traditions are banned, there are people trying to intervene to stop this from happening, to ban this. But the people there are so conditioned, they're just so brainwashed because some religion in some book that someone wrote who we don't even know, or something is stated that you have to sacrifice animals. Like what kind of better feeling or respect about yourself does it bring to kill an innocent individual and torture him or her? But even the people who try to intervene, such as journalists and photographers, or animal organizations who try to end those kind of cruel practices, they would be violently bashed from the people in these countries because they're, like I said, just brainwashed, and they would be spit on, or even some of them were beaten, and they were threatened to leave if they held on to their life. Um, and I just realized when people are so cruel to animals, to me there's no wonder that they would react so horrendously when we try to um, prevent them from doing this, because they're just so conditioned. They want to try and justify their abuse of animals, and it's just such a vicious circles, because they're doing something that's so obviously freaking wrong and immoral. And if someone tries to help you, to hold you accountable for your actions, so that you realize the cruelty of your actions, well, they're already so much, yeah, so much fucked up that they also try and justify this by resorting to cruelty toward other human beings. And yesterday as well as today, my mind just cannot grasp how people can celebrate values such as compassion and love and dignity and whatever do I know at someone's expense. Like, how can you celebrate something that's, yeah, that actually embodies some core values that all human beings have at the beginning? And I'm sure at the beginning when we're born, we're just so, we're we're yearning for love. We just strive to be loved. And you can, if you I think I watched the beginning of a new series on Netflix, and it's called Babies. And you can just see, and even through the different studies that they run, that babies just want love. They just, and and that's why I think we're all just purely good when we're born, but then we become corrupted and insane because of the experiences that we've lived, and the conditioning that we've undergone from society. Um, so we could just say the same about Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like, how can people think that actually um, like slitting a turkey's or a chicken's throat can like purge them of their, or just bring them redemption? Or how can you feel like a good person if you're literally paying for someone to die and to live in misery? It just, it, I don't get it. um, but yeah, if you even try to tell people the truth and really put into light the cruel side of their actions, they just prefer to ignore it and try to justify or tell you that you are the aggressive person, which is the case in the vegan movement. And not only do non-vegans tell that vegans are aggressive because of some tone we might be using, but even vegans tell other vegans they're aggressive. But how can you talk about billions of innocent livings being slaughtered with a calm or funny and joyfully tone? It just, you, of course, you have to get angry about this kind of things, um, especially when you know that we live in a world where stealing the rights of others, abusing them and killing them is tolerated. And to me, it's just so obvious that somehow now or later we have to pay the price for our wrongs. And and now we're seeing it. It's happening with coronavirus. Um, But yeah, everything could be just so much simpler and more peaceful if we just understood that we're all different, but we all deserve the same fundamental rights. Um, and whether you're an animal rights activist or not, we all ought to fight against cruelty in any shape or form, whether it's considered as a tradition or not, whether it's legal or not. Cruelty is cruelty, abuse is abuse. Um, and against those traditions, what you can do is simply, well, not to take part in them and raise awareness about them. Support organizations who are still um, trying to ban these traditions, sign up petitions, and as a first step, just start by leaving cruelty out of your plate and out of your lifestyle. If you don't engage in cruelty and you just show people through your lifestyle that you don't have to kill innocent animals in order to thrive, there will be always more people who will understand just the immorality of abusing animals and killing them. And I think that if more people understood that animals have rights and would stop eating them, we would definitely just have more support and power to fight against these gruesome traditions. If all people on this planet started by leaving animals off their plate and their lifestyle, then maybe we would see some progress as well in this kind of traditions. So yeah, I will leave some more info on the description box and also on YouTube if you're watching. Again, take care, and if you're very sensitive, to graphic images, well then go in We Animals Media, go in Joanne McArthur's photographs, but go in the nice pictures and the nice ones about animals who were rescued. And yeah, I hope this will bring some food for thought for anyone who was watching. And otherwise, I will wish you a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are, and I hope I will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.